Welcome to Thoughts Roundup. So nice to be here with you today. I want to, it's always a nice moment when someone says, or especially when you're younger, but really and truly, old folks love it. Once upon a time. Or you can say long ago and far away there lived. And it always gets attention because people like to hear a story. So long ago and far away there lived an old peddler. The old peddler had in his sack that he carried across the country all the items that he was going to sell to make a little profit out of. And so he was going through the land, and a little boy came up to him, and he said, "Mr. Peddler, what do you have in your sack?" He opened the top of the sack, and the little boy looked in, and he said, "Go ahead, bring what you'd like to see out of the sack." And he picked up a knife. He said, "Mr. Peddler, how much is this knife?" And he said, "That knife is 10 cents. He dropped it back in the sack, and he said, "What, you didn't like the knife?" He said, "Oh, yes, sir. I loved it, but I don't have 10 cents. The old peddler said, "Well, son, the sack's pretty heavy. And maybe if you carried that knife in your pocket for a while, it would just make the sack so much easier to carry." And so the little boy took the knife and put it in his pocket. After a while, he saw a little girl, and the little girl wanted to look in the sack. And when she looked in the sack, he reached down and he said, "Here's something nice." And it was a hair bow. Oh, she was so excited over the hair bow. Said, "How much is this?" And he said, "It's 10 cents. She dropped it back in the sack. "Why, you don't like the hair bow?" Said, "Yes, Mr. Peddler, I like the hair bow, but I don't have 10 cents. He said, "I'll tell you what," he said, I kind of think that this hair bow would look prettier in your hair than it does in this old sack. Take it out and put it in your hair. You wear it. I'd rather see it in your hair than in the sack." Somebody said, "Mr. Peddler, if you don't quit giving things away, you're going to be broke. You're going to starve to death. That's your only way of making a living." Well, he went on his way, and sure enough, one day, his sack was empty, and he was hungry. He had an old cabin that he had left many years prior, and he wound his way back to the old cabin. There was a cherry tree in the front, out in the garden, the old garden where he used to have a garden. He went in the house, and he found a place that he could sleep that night. And that night he dreamed a dream. The dream said, "If you'll take the trail down the hill to the little town, and stand on the street, someone, a man, is going to come to you, and he's going to tell you everything you want to know and everything you need to know. Well, he thought, there's something wrong. I'm just hungry and disappointed, tired, and I'm dreaming what I want to dream. But the next night, he dreamed the same dream. You go down the little trail and go to the town, and you stand on the street, and there's going to be a man tell you everything you need to know and everything you want to know. So he said, what have I got to lose? And he got up that morning and he went down the trail, and it was a cold morning. The air was real chilled. And he walked down to the street at the little town, and he stood there all day. And no one spoke to him. No one said a word to him. So that afternoon, just a little before dark, he said, well, I missed it. And he said, I might as well go in the alley and find me a place to be warm, and I'll probably die tonight. Well, just as he started to go, a man that owned a store across the street, he came across and said to him, Sir, I've noticed that you've been standing here all day, and no one has said a word to you. No one has spoken to you. He said, yeah, you see, I dreamed a dream. And he said, I dreamed a dream that if I would stand here on this street, that someone would come and tell me everything I needed to know and everything I wanted to know. But no one has come. The man looked at him and said, how foolish that you would think a dream would be meaningful enough to cause you to do something like this. He said, now, for instance, sir, he said, I also dreamed a dream. He said, I dreamed that if I would take that trail yonder and go all the way to the top of the hill, that there would be a cabin up there with a cherry tree in an old garden. And I dreamed that there was gold under the cherry tree just for the digging. Now, wouldn't I have been foolish to have listened to that dream and acted upon it? Well, the man walked off, and the old peddler, he turned and he went back up the trail. He got all the way back to his old shed and went back to where there's an old shovel that the handle was almost rotted. And he took it, and he hadn't made but just a few digs with a spade until he struck the gold. And that's when he realized that he would always have enough to give. He could give and keep giving, because God would always see to it that he had something more to give. Now, it reminds me whenever I was 17 years old, and I joined the Navy and was stationed in Rhode Island, Newport, Rhode Island. And the closest church that I could go to was in Massachusetts. 17 years old, wanted to go to church. Well, I had to take a train and a bus in order to get there. And it cost, I forget, it seemed as though it cost less than $5. And I got there and I had $5 to come home on. Well, the tall pastor, Brother George Cook, that later became a great friend of mine, stood up and did something that they said was so unusual for him. He said, "Folks, there's a need." And he spoke of the need. He said, "So if you have $5 to give, I would appreciate you giving it. We need everyone to give $5. He's normally just passed the offering plate and let people give what they wanted. Well, I had the $5 that I was going to get home on. And there was something spoke to me and said, put it in the offering. I put it in the offering. I can still see that $5 as it went all the way down the aisle towards, right down the road to the aisle. I can still see it. And after church was over, I had to be at the ship by 8 o'clock the next morning, or I'd be AWOL. And I didn't let anybody know I couldn't go. I didn't have a way to go. Didn't have any money. So I just eased to the side till everyone left. And I went and sat. I never shall forget it. I sat on the front steps. And the darkness began to settle in more and more. And I did not know what to do. And I sat there for 45 minutes. I suppose I was praying. I don't remember for sure. All of a sudden, there was a lane. There was a lane about a quarter of a mile down with trees coming to the church. The church was kind of hid back in the back. And all of a sudden, I saw car lights coming. And I was sitting up on the steps. And they said there was a couple. It was Joe Zinni, I believe his name was, and his wife. "Oh, we're so glad that you're still here. We was afraid you was gone." We got to thinking, why didn't we take that young sailor? Why didn't we take him back to the ship? It wouldn't take us, it's not but about 2 or 2.5 hours out of our way. Why don't we take him? And they come back, and I got in the car with them. Now I want to tell you all something. Ever since that time, I've always believed that God would supply. If I didn't close my fist to give it, I could have opened them to receive from Him. God bless you.